Welcome to AW Services and another video. Today's video is a showcase of the Champion 2200 watt Suitcase inverter generator. This is the UK model, which is the 92001i-UK. A lot of people buy generators, they see generators, think, oh, I need to get a generator, whether it be for camping, whether it be for working in the construction industry or the cleaning industry. The first things you need to know about buying a generator is, yes, it's the same power as your house, 220 volts. However, you need to understand wattage and the size of loads and various type of loads between inductive and resistive loads. So buying a generator of this size, this nature, this is really intended for whether you're a builder, you need it to use to power a small saw or a small angle grinder, or whether you're using it for the leisure industry, caravanning, camping, etc. This generator is listed and advertised as the 2200 watt model. That is its absolute maximum running wattage for a predefined length of time. This generator's normal standard running wattage is 1900 watts. I purchased this myself and I did pay for this generator, and I bought it from Gutter Vacuum Systems Limited in Norwich. I wanted to use it to power my Panther gutter vacuum, as my larger 3.5 kVA generator is a bit big and bulky to be carrying out of the van when I need it. So I wanted a smaller suitcase generator, something that was relatively quiet and I could also take it camping, or glamping as I like to call it, just to power lighting, a small cool box as and when I need it. And I can also then charge my van's leisure batteries through my van's charger circuit, which works off of the mains voltage. So when you get your generator and you unbox it, you'll notice how well packaged your generator is and how well protected it is with a synthetic foam packing to protect it. When you get it, unbox it, check it over, make sure there are no cracks, damage or defects. If so, you need to contact your supplier and arrange an exchange unit. Mine came delivered absolutely pristine condition with not even a scratch on the box, and that was delivered by APC Overnight Couriers locally to me in Devon. They are PJ'S Couriers and they are very reliable. So what do you get in the box? You get the generator, you get your first amount of breaking in oil, and I'll touch upon that in a minute. You get a beautiful shiwi, so if you're of a different gender and you're going camping, you can push that up against your front bum and you can wee into a hedge discreetly. And you also get a charging cable, 12 volt accessory plug, 8 amps maximum, and you get plenty of warning labels. You must not use this machine without oil, and that is the critical key part. Buying a generator in the UK, you're actually very fortunate to be getting your first bottle of complimentary oil, as due to EU directives, you don't normally find oil because it messes up things with couriers, and it makes the, I think it's ADR or something with couriers, have to have different classifications because that is an oil, but it's also could be mixed as a fuel. So a lot of couriers won't touch that. So when you get your generator out of the box, the first thing you need to do is familiarize yourself with the oil inlet. You need to fill this generator with oil for the first time before you use it. There's no point having a brand new generator, spending hundreds of amounts of pounds, caning the hell out of it, and then ringing up your supplier 2 days later and going, it stopped working. And that's because you haven't put any oil in it. So oil, 10W30, very standardized oil. You can buy this oil in many places, but I do recommend you buy high quality oil. Don't go to Screwfix and buy no nonsense oil, or don't go to B&Q and buy their oil, because 10W30 is a standardized small engine oil found in normal 4-stroke engines such as petrol lawnmowers. I'd recommend, if you can't buy Champion oil, the next best oil to buy, which is quite readily available, is the Briggs & Stratton oil, and that you can get from home base. But Briggs & Stratton are brilliant generator and they make very good oil. I don't want to go off track and advertise another company, but that's a personalised recommendation. in my opinion. So you need to familiarise yourself with the generator, and you need to put oil in it. So I'll move the accessories out of the way. I'll bring the generator into view. So on the side of your generator, you'll see the housing, and you'll see the door you can undo. That's using a large flathead screwdriver or a Phillips screwdriver. You don't have to be heavy-handed, you don't have to go really hard, but these are 1/4 of a turn really screws. Once you've undone those, you can then remove the cover. There are lots of reviews on these generators, and lots of people that are kind of like generator virgins. They've never had a generator before, so they've made lots of picky little comments about, oh, it doesn't have a handle on here to undo the door. So once you've undone the 2 screws, just put your fingers in the louver, lift it out slightly so it will come out and flap out, and then very gently lift it out and put that out of the way where you're not going to stand on it and you're not going to crush it. Inside of the generator, I will move the camera, so please excuse any shaking. This is your oil fill port. This is where you'll be filling with oil for the first time. That there is a dipstick, so familiarise yourself with the dipstick. And when you fill it with oil and a funnel which is provided, you need to fill it to the bottom of the thread. Inside the borehole or the bottom of the crankcase, you'll see a kind of a lip, and that's where the oil level maximum is. You'll see that on the dipstick, and it's also illustrated within the user manual. User manuals are crucial for equipment like this. You must read them, you must understand them, otherwise you could invalidate your warranty or damage your equipment. Once you've filled this with oil, you need to do that hand tight, not over tighten it because you will snap it, and then you need to reattach the cover. You can also take out the air filter if needed. If you're in a dusty environment, take out the air filter and spray that with a high quality air filter lubricant oil, and that attracts any dirt or particles or particulates from going into the carburetor and the air intake system. So once you've done that, you can put the cover on. If you have a bit of an OCD about preventative maintenance and you like to look after your equipment, you can do what I do on all my small engines. If you look into the inside of the enclosure, you will see here where my thumb is, a digital engine tachometer. I fit these to all of my equipment. My pressure washer, my other generator's got one. All it is an electronic box that counts hours. And this one is dyslexic friendly. It actually does show you running hours, not 1/10 increments, which sometimes are hard to understand. That's a single wire which gets wrapped around the HT lead, the high tension lead. Mine is at the base of the coil. It's wrapped round, secured with a cable tie, and also then some self-adhesive heat shrink, which just keeps that cable coil and that inductive coil tight, and that will pick up the spark intervals from the coil going to the top of the engine, and that every pulse it will count, and then it will work that out, and then it will give you hour readings. So your front cover goes back on the machine. It gently locates carefully and gently into the bottom of the housing. You then need a screwdriver. Gently, because it's got tabs, pushes into place. A few gentle turns, and that will tighten the enclosure cover back onto the side of the generator. Again, you haven't got to be over tight on this. And if you like, you can go around all the screws on the outer casing and just double check those if you like. If you're a bit OCD on quality control, you can check all your screws are done. So you filled the machine with oil. Then you need to fill it with petrol. Fresh, high quality, unleaded petrol. Don't have cans of petrol lying around for years. Always use fresh, clean petrol, and I recommend you use a funnel with a screening mesh inside. Again, then you don't fill up the tank of the generator with lots of debris and grit. This is the petrol fill port on this generator. Unlike a lot of the Honda EU engines and many other generators where the fill port is here, this again, it's a bit off center, and if you've got OCD, you might think that looks a bit bizarre, but the reason they've put it there is a good reason. Is when you're filling your generator with petrol, whether you're using a funnel or the affixed nozzle onto a fuel can, with a lot of the generators, you'd fill the petrol here, you'd get spills and drips, which would then drip onto the front control panel and then damage all the print, damage the plastics, and sometimes it can actually leak into the inverter circuit, but most of the inverter circuits on these generators now are potted in resin. The fuel cap goes on, and then you turn the fuel cap to the on position, so the breather allows the petrol to flow via gravity into the carburetor. You can bleed the carburetor with the screw, and on the side of the generator there is a bleed screw on the carburetor, but for the first time all you need to do is put fuel in there, open up the port on the top, which is the breather vent, and leave it for a few minutes before attempting to pull it. Familiarization with your equipment is key. This small cover pops off, and inside that small cover is the top and the access hole for the spark plug and HT lead. On the front of the generator you have two UK 13 amp style sockets. You have a 12 volt accessory socket. You must read the user manual for the correct usage of these, and then you also have parallel ports, which means if you have two identical generators to this and the parallel port connecting module box, you can run two generators at the same time producing the same power, 220 volts, but a slightly higher current. So instead of running this at 1900 watts, you may be able to get more from using two generators combined together. You also have an earth bonding position here. I personally have never used an earth bonding on any generator under 10 kVA. Depends where you work. You shouldn't be using this in downpour, rain, monsoon conditions because of the risk of electric shock associated with electric, but we all have common sense, so we should all be readily available in that information. You also have on here different LEDs. You've got oil warning indicator, you've got an eco mode switch, and then another one I've not actually familiarized myself with, silly me, but when the engine starts, I believe it starts in eco mode, you can press that and it will rev a bit higher. But for the first use and the breaking in period of this generator, as quoted in the instruction manual, you use this piece of equipment for 5 hours, and that's 5 hours with the oil supplied, and you must not use this generator exceeding 50% power. So you mustn't really go in straight away revving its bollocks off. You mustn't use it anymore or at 50% for 5 hours. Once you've done that, you need to drain out the oil from the drain port, which is the fill port as listed. You can either use a hand extractor pump or a vacuum pump to suck that oil out. You may find once you've drained out the oil from its first use, it may come out quite black. The reason for that is that it's picking up any small particulates from the manufacturing process, and when they build these, they sometimes line the bearings, the crankshaft connecting rod, the shell bearings with a black high temperature grease to stop them seizing while these are in storage before they're sold. So once you've run it for 5 hours, you drain out the oil, which comes out a dirty, dark, golden brown to black colour, and then you refill with the same amount of oil, the same viscosity at 10W30, which is 0.5 litres, and then you can carry on using your generator. But for the first couple initial uses, you don't want to have it at full load. You just want to be very careful. On the top here, you have got circuit breakers, 13 amp for the 2 plugs and the 8 amp for the 12 volt accessory plug. On the reverse side, You have a technical specification label and serial number. I would always write down the individual equipment serial number that's located on the user manual. Keep that safe, and also security mark the equipment if you're using it in an area where you think it could be stolen. You can also padlock the unit with a chain or a cable via the carry handle if you're using it, but always make sure the generator is in sight at all times. Don't leave it out because it will be vulnerable to theft. And also you need to be very mindful of things like enclosures. You must not use this in an enclosed building. You must not use it indoors. And there is a certain thing in the user manual about how many meters away from the building you should use it, obviously, because of its associated fire risks and poison, toxic gas emissions from the exhaust being carbon monoxide. So you've got its different ratings here. So you've got starting power, its maximum power, its rated output, which is 1900 watts. You've got its weight, you've got various currents, and its IP rating, which is IP23M. Very good to read up on that if you're unsure. Lots of warning labels on the top. C marking, UK variant being the two 40 volt sockets. And then on the back, you have the exhaust, so you need to be careful that you're not having this anywhere near something that could catch on fire. Exhaust fumes kill, and exhaust can cause a fire. This one being a very good quality generator, this gauze is actually called a spark arrestor. So if you get any issues with the combustion, some generators can spit out sparks or hot embers which can start fires, but these spark arrestors interrupt any debris that's coming from the exhaust and diffuses that, stopping it flying out backwards. Lots of warnings here. Hot, do not touch. So you need to be very careful, very mindful of that. You've also got an easy start guide with the generator and an easy start guide sticker printed here as well. You always need to make sure when running the generator that you turn and disattach or remove the load from the generator before stopping it. Here you have a choke, a really nice manual choke, not a silly little lever like some of them put on their carburetors which snap off, but this is a proper choke, very synonymous with the classic Austin Mini that pulls out and you can lock it and it pulls back in. For the first time, depending on your weather and your climate, you may need to engage the choke. And then you have your recoil. With any recoil, you must never snatch at them. You need to pull out your recoil gently until you feel the recoil unit and the dogs inside the clutch assembly bite, and then gently pull it from there. Also, my first tips for starting a generator: fill it with the correct oil, fill it with fuel, and before you actually turn on the fuel switch to start it for the first time, just very gently pull over the machine a few times to lubricate the bottom of the crankshaft, the connecting rod, the bottom of the piston, because if you don't do that, you sometimes can wear it. But that works for me, and you must not ever pull this and engage it and pull the crank before there is any oil in the machine. But that is my honest and valued opinion, my own personal review of the Champion generator. A massive thank you to Julia and Mark at Gutter Vacuum Systems Limited, Norwich. Brilliant piece of equipment. I will show some videos of it running at some point, but I'm not going to answer 1,000,001 questions from generator virgins. I will help, so if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. If you like this video, please give it a like, a thumbs up, and also if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. But thank you for watching AW Services.